We're just checking as people attend now. Just give a minute or two just for people to join. But you're very welcome this morning to our cross-border customs clearance event in conjunction with Easy Customs. I'll do the introduction shortly now in 1 minute, but just delighted to have this event because there are so many challenges out there, and I think this will demystify some of the challenges that are out there this morning. And living with Brexit, I think you can see it on your screen there after 9 months. It's kind of timely to review how things are actually going in practical reality. And we're delighted to have Anna Swan here from Mantis as well, from a company perspective of what they've done with Easy Customs as well, as an example of things that you can do to get over the challenges and the roadblocks that are there. So just checking, yeah, we're still a few people to join. Just give it 1 more minute. Okay, I think we're happy enough to kick off now, Claire. I think we're...
Yeah, I'm good to go if you are.
Yeah, well, look, you again, just to reiterate, you're very, very welcome today to the cross-border customs clearance session. My name is Paul Clancy and I'm CEO of the Chamber. And we're delighted to welcome Conal Dunn, founder of Easy Customs. Conal, he's a fellow of the Chartered Accountants Ireland, and he has an MBA, and he's almost 20 years of experience working in international business for organizations such as PricewaterhouseCoopers, Foyle Food Group, and Linden Foods. And also Claire McEldowney, who's General Manager of Easy Customs. And Claire is General Manager, as mentioned there, qualified customs accountant with Chartered Accountants Ireland. And Claire most recently spent 6 years in the Middle East, managing the supply chain and procurement division of large tourism and leisure organizations based in the UAE. Prior to that, she has gained vast experience working on various multinational companies within the construction, media, and financial services sectors. And in her current role, she focuses on supporting clients in all trade and customs related matters, and in particular helps them navigate the challenging post-Brexit business environment. And I think that about sums it up really. Look, in this world of living with Brexit, it's really timely after 9 months to review the customs clearance landscape. And I suppose to understand the challenges that are there, but also the opportunities that are there also in this new business environment. And this morning, Conal and Claire, supported by Anna from Mantis, they're going to take us through, you know, the customs landscape, the changes coming downstream, and then a case study, which is really what I think a lot of people want to hear of, the practical things that you can do to make it as easy. Claire is, I'm going to hand over to Claire in a second. She's going to take us through a presentation, but look, please feel free to ask questions. That's what this session is about, is ask as many questions as you possibly can. We may not get to all of them. We may not have the answer for all of them, but certainly please log them. And I know that the contact details for Easy Customs, for Claire and for Conal will be there after the event to reach out to if you need any support afterwards. But please ask questions, and there will be time at the end of Claire's presentation to ask any questions in an open forum as well. So without further ado, maybe Claire, I'll just hand over to you to take us through the presentation, and thanks so much again for joining us this morning.
Thanks, Paul. Let me just get started here now. Sorry, first glitch, guys. I'm not sure what's happening here. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so you all see my screen okay there? Just Paul, I'm just checking. Yeah, no, that's fine. Or even I've frozen. This is very typical. Sorry, guys. Just give me 1 second. Okay, there we go. Everyone see the first slide there? Yes, yeah. Brilliant. Okay, thank you, Paul, again, and good morning, everyone. As Paul said, my name is Claire, and I'm General Manager here at Easy Customs. So just a little bit about ourselves to begin with. We are a customs clearance agency. We specialise in GB and Irish trade and can support in rest of the world export and import requirements. Our aim is to make the customs clearance process as painless and as easy as possible for our clients. That's the support role that Paul mentioned, and we can provide custom services for Irish, UK and NI goods movements, and we have offices in the UK and the Republic. The thing to bear in mind is we actually can offer a one-stop shop. We can complete your Irish export along with your corresponding UK import where required. So we can tailor to all your customs needs finish. Since Brexit has arrived, we've dealt with numerous scenarios, some complex. We're still meeting new and varied issues, but we find that continual liaison with the appropriate regulatory bodies, HMRC, Irish Revenue, communication lines being kept open with the client, helps us do our jobs correctly and efficiently. I know for participants, there's a huge amount of customs related info online. There's courses run by accredited bodies, there's websites, there's presentations basically every week in 2021. I think that people could have attended if they wanted to. We would say one of the best teachers has been the day-to-day experience. It's been a big learning curve, even as a customs agent. And we try to take those practical examples and apply them and support our clients using the knowledge and experience we have. So I'm beginning today running through some high-level considerations and background information you should be aware of in relation to your own customs planning. It's difficult in a presentation like this to compress all the information into 45-minute slots. So the topics I'm going to cover, each could merit their own full day. So I hope you find these slides informative and useful at an introductory level to help you think about, what you should be doing and thinking about for customs for your own business. And as Paul has said, you are welcome to follow up with questions at the end. Myself, Connell, and the team will also be able to take any queries after the presentation that I'm sure the Chamber can direct you to us, and our contact details will be on the final slide. So to begin, Brexit has resulted obviously in the need for businesses to undertake customs procedures for trade with the UK since the end of the transition period. Pre-Brexit, we didn't have any of this. We didn't have goods checked at the internal EU borders. It's new to so many of us, and it's caused a lot of unease and I think stress probably. But what we would say is definitely with the challenges, Brexit can also present much opportunity. And I think the thing is, it's looking at how we adapt to the challenge that marks us apart from our competitors. And I think adapting to the challenge, the key is understanding customs, what's involved and what do you need to do in your business. So as I said, the starting point is effectively looking at customs, where you see it here in the slide at a glance. It's a charge and control on goods entering the marketplace. It's one of the world's oldest professions, traditionally operated at the point of entry, and is concerned with all goods, including online purchases, but not services. There are three key facets to customs. They're known as the three pillars: classification, origin, and valuation. These are crucial elements in determining how your customs declaration is completed. I'm going to just run through them now at a high level, as I said. There's a lot of information behind each of these pillars. Origin is the economic nationality of the goods, the country where they last underwent a significant transformation. Origin is, I think challenge is definitely the word to use in terms of origin. It's a vast and complex area. It's one we receive many, many queries on, probably the biggest area we receive queries on. We would always defer to HMRC or Irish Revenue Specialist if in doubt, and I'd advise you to do the same, if not directly, then through a customs agent. It's a big area to undertake if you're only beginning, and it can feel a little bit daunting. But as I said, the supports are out there, so don't feel too stressed by it. Origin, in terms of customs, it's broken down into preferential and non-preferential origin. You'll see these terms a lot once you start delving into the customs world. Preferential relates to where trade agreements exist between members, and non-preferential applies to goods traded between countries that don't have any trade agreement. Those definitions are very high level, I would say. There's a lot goes in behind each of those. But as I said, we would always, even for ourselves, seek support if there's any doubt about origin. The next pillar is classification of your goods. This is the process of determining the correct code for your goods in order to have them accurately recorded. I'm showing here the EU tariff database. HMRC also have their classification resource as well. Every product has a specific code for customs purposes. This code will determine the amount of applicable duty you pay on imported goods. You can use this this tariff database, or as I said, the HMRC, to find this appropriate code. You'll also be able to find more information in here on particular goods that maybe where there is a suspension of duties, where there's quotas related to the goods, like with steel. any anti-dumping measures. There's a huge amount of information behind each commodity code. You, as I said, can seek support in this. Your customs agent should be able to assist you. And you may have heard classification referred to by a few different names. You can hear it referred to as the HS code, the CN code, or as I said, the commodity code. This is just an example I put up of classification of coffee and tea. And if you look down the image on the slide, you'll see there's various subheadings you can select from. This is just to highlight how accurate you need to try and be with classification. So as a starting point for anyone thinking about moving goods who hasn't previously done it, I'd start looking at your product, speaking to your supplier about the correct classification. And as I mentioned, if in doubt, always seek support. The third pillar would be the valuation. This is the value of goods for customs purposes. And it's usually the transaction value, which is the price actually paid or payable for the goods. So the three pillars, as just discussed, are all important elements of any customs declaration. And you'll see those in practice later on in the slides where they actually go. Incoterms is another huge consideration. I mean, pre-Brexit, Incoterms were always in existence. They're uniform, internationally recognized trade terms. They refer to the type of agreement for the purchase and shipping of goods internationally. Each term helps users deal with different situations involved in the movement of goods. It classifies who's responsible for expenses involved in the shipment at a given point, who owns the goods at a given point in their journey, and who's responsible for paying for any damage to goods at a given point in the shipment. So for Easy Customs, I think one of the initial conversations we tend to have when clients call us up, or potentially new clients ring us, we do a plotting exercise, looking at the supply chain, determining who's the importer, who's the exporter, who's responsible for what along the supply chain, which is a really important exercise for anyone embarking on the customs journey. Some of the common Incoterms you'll hear mentioned, ex works, delivered duty paid, cost insurance rates are listed on the slide here. Each one of these will occupy a varying stage on the spectrum of Incoterms. So it's an important discussion to have with your suppliers or your customers. It informs an important part of the contract. In addition to Incoterms, another area that Brexit probably has presented much discussion on has been VAT. It's a query we receive a lot of also, and a lot of our consultancy work at Easy Customs supports businesses in this regard. Our in-house VAT consultants available to deal with any specific VAT questions. At this point, I'm not going to go through every line on the slide. It's just to give you a flavour of the considerations that are at play post-Brexit. Again, for any of you with specific queries, feel free to drop them in the questions or at the end of the presentation. We'd be happy to try and answer them or take them offline if they need further investigation. Next, we're turning to trade flows, and it's something to think about with your goods and the direction they're going in, where you're based, where you're sending them, where's your customer, where's your supplier. All of this has an impact because there's different requirements dependent on the flow of the goods. So you'll see I've just highlighted some of them in the following slides. The first here is GB to NI. Obviously now post-Brexit, we're looking at the classifying the goods in terms of, I shouldn't confuse that with the earlier classification, but we're looking at deeming goods at risk and not at risk. There's also considerations for the haulier that are additional to what they were pre-Brexit, such as the GMR, the Goods Movement Reference, which they must have before they board the ferry in the UK to go across to Northern Ireland. The next one is ROI to GB. So if you were sending stuff out of Dublin or Rosslare, the same premise as the Goods Movement Reference that the haulier needs to go into NI, the ROI equivalent is a PBN. So apologies, there's a lot of acronyms in customs. It's like a new dictionary and language. So it takes a bit of getting used to if you've yet to venture down the customs road. One other element is mentioned on the slide are SPS goods. It's quite topical at the moment after the UK's announcement last week, and we'll look at that later on in the slides as well. We also have highlighted here the movement, which could be GB to NI via ROI and vice versa. In practice, I don't think we've had too much of this movement in terms of our own business. Businesses tend to send goods direct, and it's really here for information purposes, just to highlight the potential. ROI through NI to GB. This is a very relevant one for Irish businesses, particularly along the border counties. They would use an NI port logistically, it's closer. I know Anne and her team at Mantis have done exports through Northern Ireland. And since the goods originate in the Republic of Ireland, a full Irish export declaration is needed, even if they're departing Belfast, Larne or Warrenpoint. So all of these considerations are important. And it's at the planning stage you need to be thinking about which way are my goods going to go and what am I going to need to send them that way. GB to ROI, but through NI, there's two options to do the customs clearance here. The first being clear them in Northern Ireland using a supplementary import declaration. You'd need your XI EORI number in order to do this. Most people probably have this at this point, but if not, yeah, you will require it to do customs clearance in Northern Ireland. The second option is to move the goods under a transit procedure from GB through the north to the Republic of Ireland. Transit is a special customs procedure. It allows movement of goods between 2 points of a customs territory through another customs territory. And it's something that we at Easy Customs can support on as well and can advise you on in terms of requirements. Talking of Northern Ireland, and I'm sure most, maybe not all, on the webinar today have encountered TSS. So this is the North's Trader Support Service, a free-to-use customs portal set up to support businesses dealing with Northern Ireland customs procedures. I think initially TSS was communicated as a temporary measure and for an initial period of 2 years. I'm not sure what the plan is at the moment in terms of how long we'll have it in place. Longer term, there is talk that a formal customs software will be needed in its place, which is something businesses will need to think about. We at Easy Customs obviously make use of a customs software to complete declarations. So yeah, in the future, TSS could be phased out, and that's something, as I said, businesses will have to think about or seek support with. I think talking to anyone who's used TSS, they would refer to some of its limitations. I think 1st of January hit, it maybe wasn't 100% ready. It was being built as they went. There were issues with commodity code availability, not a full list of Incoterms, its functionality. A lot of that has been ironed out, and I have to say the Trader Support Service team have been incredibly supportive in terms of answering queries and seeking to make sure that they are at a point that everyone can use it easily. To use it, just bear in mind, it's for movement of goods from GB to NI or bringing goods into NI from outside the UK, and you will need an XI EORI number in order to avail of the Trader Support Service. So just a few points on the slide, which I'm sure most are familiar with at this point. The Trader Support Service is specific to Northern Ireland, but if you're moving goods in other territories, you may be familiar with the SAD document. This is the single administrative document. It's the principal customs form used in international trade to or from the European Union Customs Union. So I spoke earlier about the 3 pillars of customs. It's probably difficult to see every line on this at the moment. There's quite a lot of information, but those 3 pillars and all the theory around customs that you hear about ultimately feeds into the customs declaration, which looks like this. This is the document, which is now electronic. It used to be paper-based. And you can see some of the relevant information here, the consignor, consignee. You have your commodity code is there in box 33. And as I said, it's for anyone completing EU customs formalities, they may or may not, you would have seen this. If you're strictly using TSS, you may not have come across the SAD before. But it's just useful to understand that all the theory, all the webinars, all the information does eventually funnel down to a customs declaration, and making sure the information that goes on this declaration is accurate and right. And both HMRC and Irish Revenue will conduct post-clearance checks. So your goods can move and get to where they need to go, but you may find a couple of months post-movement that you have a communication from the revenue team to say, we noticed you put this valuation, can you give us the rationale behind that? Or we note that you selected such a commodity code, can we see the description of the goods? So it's just, again, another element to bear in mind when planning your customs journey. And in addition, an area that has, it's not something I would say that you need to think about in the immediate with your customs planning, but it's definitely something your broker or your agent can advise you on, are some special procedures, which, as it says, allow you to store, temporarily use, process, or repair your goods and get a partial or full relief from duty, or in some cases suspension. So I know that as an agent, the most common special procedure we've dealt with in 2021 has been temporary admission. And there are specific coding that goes on a customs declaration to let revenue know you're availing of these procedures. Similarly, for the likes of inward processing, you're also required to tell revenue how much of the goods under this process have actually been utilized. So it's just an area to be aware of. Your business may or may not require special procedures. And again, that's something you can seek support on, and we are happy to advise you on as an agent also. So I think the title of the presentation is Living with Brexit. We're living with it now 9 months, and I think it's thrown up a mix of feeling and attitudes. Overall, it's been a bumpy road, but I feel it's smoothed out. I think we started to feel it smoothing out even around March, which was positive. As people became more used to the processes and got involved, and got their agent to help them out, which was, I think, an important facet of it also. You see that the road does become smoother. A lot went against the January in terms of it being an easy run in. I mean, the trade deal was very late in its agreement and misunderstood. I think people believed that it meant full customs would not apply, which was not the case. In effect, really, the trade deal impacts one box on the declaration, which is not something I think the general public understood. Northern Ireland, the protocols had its own impact, and that's ongoing, as we see in the news regularly. Definitely an overload of information was a problem. I think in the run into Brexit, no more than throughout 2021, you could avail of many seminars, webinars, presentations. But I think in some cases it served to leave people feeling very unsure, because there just seemed to be so much to think about. But it's about breaking it down, and as I said, look around and see where you need to go for supports for your particular scenario. Suppliers and customers on both sides adopted a sort of, the other side must be looking out for it, which wasn't always the case, and led to some confusion and even goods being held up. So that's something we try to work with our clients on, just ironing out the communication. What has your supplier said? What have you told your customer? It's really important. Administrative and paperwork issues. I mean, I think anyone who's completed a customs declaration will tell you it's not a straightforward process the first time you do it. It definitely takes some repetition and practice. As I've alluded to, origin rules can be very confusing and overwhelming. And it's something that I wouldn't say anyone embarking on the customs process would take to straight away. There's a lot of work around origin. Systems and process issues. I mean, obviously the volumes for the Irish import system, which is AIS, TSS, it all caused problems. We definitely had weekends where systems were down and people had to revert to manual processes at the ports. That puts pressure on everyone in the supply chain, and it can be quite stressful. But to be fair to all the revenue partners and colleagues, they worked really hard to iron those out, and we haven't had anything like that now in a few months, which has been great and really positive. Tendency to avoid the demands of customs, which I completely understand. I think if you're feeling unsure of where to begin, probably the easiest thing to do is avoid it. And I think that's what we're here today to try and let you know that there's no need for that. You can reach out to the likes of ourselves to guide you through the steps. And trade volumes, we hear, still remain low compared to 2020. And it's not all COVID related. Brexit's had a huge impact. And I think, yeah, that definitely seems to be the case. And it'll be interesting now to see where we go from here in the last quarter of 2021 and into 2022. So just on the Brexit implications and heading into the last quarter and next year, last week's announcement, I'm sure most people heard that the UK have now delayed the imposition of certain checks and controls on goods entering the country. And it's been described by the UK government as a pragmatic new timetable. Just a summary of it, it's set out here in the slides. You can have a look. So full customs declarations will take effect from the 1st of January. I think that's the only thing that's remained the same. That was always their plan. The October 21 planned introductions of pre-notification of SPS goods and export health certificates have both been pushed back to January and July, respectively. And then changes planned for January have been pushed back again now to July. A lot of it centers around this SPS, which is sanitary and phytosanitary goods. So that's plant and animal origin products. Extra controls are planned to be brought in for those, and it will require additional entry on the IPAS system. Pre-notification of any imports of these goods arriving into the UK will be done through this IPAS system. So it's an additional HMRC system that if you're involved in the trade of such goods, you need to be registered on, or speak to an agent who can register on your behalf and assist you with that. So the changes are going to mean additional admin and paperwork. There's definitely going to be more involved than what's been to date. And I think the reports from the ports and the hauliers and clients of ours have been that in and out of Northern Ireland and the UK has been fairly straightforward to date. I think that will change, and people need to be prepared for that and have the conversations with all the partners in their supply chain. Timing is everything, and being prepared as early as possible is key when it comes to customs declarations and having your paperwork and goods ready and making sure everyone knows their responsibility along that supply chain. So that's just a slide, after last week. I think before last week, we had planned a different information slide here on how to deal with the changes, but this is something as they come on board and as we get closer to these dates, we're definitely available if you need to check anything with us, okay? So I'm going to ask Anne now, who has very kindly offered to take part in our webinar today. Anne is a client of ours from Mantis Cranes here in Donegal. Anne and I are going to discuss a few of the Brexit impacts that she's felt on her own business. Mantis, just to give you some background, provide tower cranes and self-erecting cranes for hire and sale throughout Ireland and the UK. They have goods moving between ROI, UK and NI in varying directions. And one special procedure they had availed of earlier this year was temporary admission, particularly where a crane was to be leased. So it's only over in the UK or Ireland on a temporary basis. And because Mantis have such a breadth of good flow, you'll see that they've actually needed the customs software in the 3 jurisdictions to assist in their goods movement. So it's definitely been a challenge, but it's been great to work with Anne and her team. So Anne, are you okay to unmute there?
I am unmuted, Claire. Yes.
So a couple of questions, Anne, I'm going to throw to you just from your own experience, just to give people a flavour of life on the ground, if that's okay.
No problem.
Describe your own preparations for post-Brexit trading.
Our preparation started last year, and we honestly didn't know what we were preparing for, and we seemed to be preparing with no idea what we were preparing for. Certainly knew we had to get an EORI number for our Irish company and our UK-based company. Because we had no idea, we decided we needed to get educated. So we attended as many webinars, training courses as we possibly could, just to get more familiar with the terms, the procedures, the policies. And it was wonderful attending all those courses, because it gave you a little bit of armor that you really needed when tackling Brexit. Then we kind of had to look at whether we were going to handle the paperwork in-house here in Mantis, or whether we would get a customs agent. And we decided that our volume of transactions were fairly low. The value of them were very high. And on top of that, they were quite complex. We had no knowledge in the company, we had no expertise. And it was at that point that we decided to look for an agent. And we came across yourselves, Easy Customs, in that process.
And we're delighted you did. So I remember, Anne, actually, I think it was a webinar through the local business network is how we connected. Yeah.
Yes, it certainly was. I must admit, Easy Customs were on my radar before this. I was actually quite interested in Connell's practice, but I had been investigating a number of agents, and Easy Customs were on my radar. Then I heard you were doing a presentation with the Letterkenny Chamber of Commerce. So I joined that presentation. I was really impressed with yourself, Claire, your knowledge and your expertise, and Colin's guidance as well. And I just thought, right, I'm giving this company a call, see if we can work with them. And thank God you were able to work with us.
Well, thanks for that, Anne. So can I ask, just from your own perspective, how do you feel you benefited from having an agent, or how have Mantis benefited to date?
Oh, it's just been wonderful. And just to round up the whole thing, it's just wonderful because we were unaware of like sad documents. We've things going from Republic of Ireland to the UK via Northern Ireland, UK to Dublin, UK, to Belfast, to Republic of Ireland. We fall under an awful lot of procedures that are kind of not so common with other companies. Like we've got the temporary admission, as you mentioned earlier, Claire. We would have returned goods. We're now dealing with certificates of origin, which is a whole new ball game for us. So like having Easy Customs there in the corner and, you know, being able to explain things has just been, it's just been great. You've taken an awful lot of the headache out of customs and Brexit. So it's wonderful. I know we have our part to play, but it's wonderful being able to talk to an agent who has expertise in this area, and that's what we really needed.
Thanks, Anne. Yeah, and I think we definitely have had to work together to kind of flesh out, you know, all the plans for yourselves and what's required. And I remember one day sitting with all the information and almost drawing a map just to see, right, which way are we going to go with Mantis? And yeah, it's been a great working relationship so far. In addition, obviously, Anne, you mentioned the SAD and the customs declarations. Can you describe some of the consultancy that you feel has been obtained through ourselves and the benefits?
Well, from the word go, Claire, I found your company very easy to work with, very open and very willing to help give a hand whenever we were stuck in a corner. And we've had difficulties with temporary admission. We've had difficulties with TSS. We've had difficulties with the certificates of origin. We even had difficulties at weekends with shipments, and very luckily for us, you're able to provide a weekend service as well. And you've pulled us out a few times getting goods across the Irish Sea. So I just know that if there's any problem, although we will have researched some of the detail ourselves here, just getting that extra set of ears, someone else's opinion, is invaluable when it comes to Easy Customs.
Well, that's great, Anne. Yeah, and the weekend thing is definitely something to be mindful of, because, you know, goods movements don't stop for the Monday to Friday. And I think that's something has hit a lot of businesses, you know, when you're getting a call from your transport provider to say, I'm stuck, you do need, it's good to be able to pick up the phone. In terms of post-Brexit trading, what do you think's been your biggest learning curve, Anne?
I think communication with internally within the company, you know, for the guys in here to say that we have a load moving and it's going to be happening in 2 or 3 days time. And then for us to get in touch with yourselves to give you a warning that can you book us in for this procedure. Also talking to our hauliers, because the hauliers have their set of, they have an agenda, they have to get goods from A to B, but sometimes the paperwork that a haulier might want to do in your behalf is not the complete set of paperwork. So everybody needs to know what their role is, what their responsibility is, step up to it and action it in a timely manner. Yeah, definitely. I think that's the thing, it's preparation takes some of the, and communication takes some of that last minute feel to it and stress out of it. Yes.
Exactly. Thanks a million, Anne. And I just really have one kind of final query of you, and it's, would you have any advice to offer anyone yet to embark on the customs process or just starting to look at that for their business?
Yeah, yet to embark, there's plenty of support out there in terms of information, probably at times a little bit too much, okay? There's definitely financial support, so I would explore that. And one thing we did, and it was very useful, we had no time constraint. We just bought something from the UK just to see what the procedure was.
Like a dry run.
Just a dry run. And I think we made every mistake possible because our invoices had to be slightly different. Our packing lists had to be different. We needed to talk to our hauliers in a different language than usual. So a dry run, I would recommend it.
Okay, that's brilliant. Good advice. And I have to say, Mantis, things definitely now are, you know, we've reached a nice kind of smooth path with goods movement. And yeah, that's great. And thank you so much. And we're really glad you joined us today on the webinar.
Thanks.
So that's just to give you an idea from a client perspective, and I hope it's useful just to hear some feedback of what the reality of it's like. And it's not all negative or grey area. The answers are there, and as I say, it's something that we endeavour to provide in our support role. Again, this is a checklist I'm given, which I'm assuming a majority of people know the items on this and are familiar with the preparations. But if you haven't seen some of these, it's useful to be aware of them. Important actions for you and or your clients. If you happen to be attending the webinar on behalf of the client, it's something that you can share with them. It's a checklist really just if you're about to start the process, and as I alluded to, sitting down at a meeting table with a few other internal stakeholders, it's a good checklist to have with you. Most people have their EORI number since well before Brexit has happened. Consider engaging an agent, looking at your goods flows, have the conversations, review the costs and the pricing. We've had examples where just on the conversation end, we've had shipments from China. We had one in particular that was stuck for over a week at the port. The poor driver turned up every day to obtain the goods and take them to where they needed to go, and the customs authorities refused to release them. And at the end, it really turned out it was just a complete breakdown in the communication between all the parties involved. And actually, they called us after this, at this point, as Easy Customs, we got called. And it ended up being that we intervened between the few parties, brought them together on a call, and we actually got the consignment released. And it just goes to show the benefit of everyone being involved from early on in the conversation. Let me just see, the next one that I have is a continuation, of the checklist. And it's again, coming back to the 3 pillars. Do you know your code? Have you had that conversation? What about origin? That is an area that you definitely need consideration around. Any special requirements? Are your products classed as food or agri? Oral declarations that happen in some cases. It's something we've had to deal with a few times through Irish Revenue. Have you got your system accesses? Do you know how you'll pay for duty if you have duty arising? All of these are so important to have plans in advance. REX is the registered exporter system. It allows you to certify preferential origin, and it's just something again to be aware of. And Anne mentioned financial supports, and there are many out there. If you look, at your local bodies, your local enterprise, the likes of Intertrade Ireland, definitely investigate and, research if you're eligible for anything that can help your business tackle the whole project. So on that, this is just a summary slide I've done on final advice before goods movement. And I mean, it's to be honest, it's really just common sense. I don't think anything here is groundbreaking or new to anyone, but it's just something to think about in addition to the checklist. Paperwork is so important. As an agent, that's the thing we have to say to the client. They've signed with us, we've had initial conversations on the phone, and they always say, "No, what next?" And I'm like, we need all the paperwork gathered, we need to review it, we need time. Doing it in as timely a manner as possible helps yourself so much and your company and everyone involved. The test run Anne mentioned, it's always a good idea if possible. It's not practical for everyone, but if you can do one, it really does give everyone a flavor of what's going to come in the months to follow. Knowing it's amazing the amount of people call us and I ask, when are you due to send the goods? I don't know. You really need to be talking to your transport partners. They're a key player now, particularly because they're the face and representative at the port. If there's ever anything, that needs to be checked or a consignment issue, they're going to be dealing with it on the ground. And that leads in again to the communication with all these partners and keeping everything filed for future auditing. I think this year, as the first year, I don't think there's going to be any key audits. Everyone's getting their head around things. But as things settle, revenue audits will become common, and customs paperwork and everything that fed into that paperwork, it's really important that all those records are kept correctly and accurately. So I think that is most of it from me, and I'm handing back to Paul just to see if we have any questions. And I hope you find this informative. It's hard not to find all the information around customs a little bit overloading. That's why I think to tailor it to an hour's presentation, it's definitely kept at a high level. So I thank you all for your time, and I hope it's been beneficial. I'll just pop up our contact details. And Paul, I'm going to hand back to you now.
I'll maybe just jump in there, Paul, if that's okay.
Sure.
So I just want to, first of all, thanks Claire and Anne, that was very informative. And I suppose one of the things that really jumped out at me, and just to reiterate, was planning in advance and collaboration, really, I suppose. The customs agent, really, a lot of it is like about collaboration. And one of the first things that we often say if a new customer comes in and there's a goods movement is we just want, I think Claire mentioned it there about mapping it out. We want to find out what's actually going on. So we say, okay, well, where are the goods now? Where are they going to? What does this customer want to do? Where are they based? And we nearly just map out, okay, we want to get goods from here to here and have it clear in front of us, so we have a good vision of what will be needed, because that will allow the customer then to get the most efficient and effective process for customs. And it's very much a collaboration. It's a two-way thing, as it was, involving the various different people in the supply chain. So going into some of the questions, I know a question did come in earlier there. Just we would like to deal with. We would like to know how to deal with the Brexit charges and if we can claim them back using de minimis, and if so, how do we do this? Okay, so I suppose maybe to answer that, I suppose what people might want to know is how do they avoid customs charges, so they don't want to pay any duties. I suppose so. Customs charges, essentially, there's duty and there's VAT. So the VAT can't be avoided, albeit maybe you can use postponed VAT accounting or claim it back through a VAT return. But the duty is the one that's actually a real charge to yourselves or to your businesses. So one way that you can potentially not pay duty is if the product that you're actually bringing in, the commodity code, as Claire referred to, is actually just a 0% third country rate product. So if it's if the duty is on for third countries is 0%, then you won't have to pay any duty regardless of what movement you're doing or where it's coming from or what the origin is. So that's probably the simplest way not to pay duty. And you'll find that, as Claire alluded to, the first thing you'll do is you'll look up your commodity code and you will see what third country duty is. The second way to avoid duty is if you are buying a product and it's coming into either the Republic of Ireland or it's coming into Northern Ireland, and it's got an origin of GB, then or an origin of UK, then under the trade and cooperation agreement between the EU and the UK, you will not have to pay any duty because you'll be claiming relief under the origin. So the origin is going to be UK. So it's only if you're buying product that does not have an origin of the UK that potentially you'll have to pay duty coming into the island of Ireland, either north or south. So the third way then to relieve duty, and that this applies to Northern Ireland traders, is through the UK trader scheme. Okay, so you will have heard the phrase at risk. Okay, so at risk means, is the product at risk of crossing the border? So the UK trader scheme is essentially a trusted trader program. So for certain goods, if you're based within Northern Ireland, you can apply to the UK trader scheme, and you may be able to say that, listen, I only sell to Northern Ireland, or a certain percent, most of my sales are to Northern Ireland and only a smaller element are to the Republic of Ireland. And you can apply to the UK trader scheme. And what that will allow you to do is whenever you are actually bringing in goods from GB, and duty applies to those goods, you will only pay duty on the element that is deemed at risk, okay, i.e. at risk of crossing the border. So certainly that's a good option for some businesses to look at in terms of applying to the UK trader scheme. And then the fourth is and I think that's the original question here referred to, it was the de minimis and the duty waiver. So there's a duty waiver scheme whereby it falls under the EU de minimis rules, whereby businesses can claim a refund or not have to pay essentially the duty, and they get this from HMRC, and the amount is up to €200,000 over a 3-year period. Okay, so essentially it will involve a quarterly return to HMRC. You actually claim the duty through your supplementary declaration on the Trader Support Service. and then you just have to do a quarterly declaration or a quarterly return to HMRC, and we can maybe throw up the link possibly afterwards, or we can send out the link afterwards to how you do that. But it's on gov.uk in terms of that return. So for the person asking that question, essentially you go on, you claim the relief, the duty waiver relief on the supplementary declaration, and then you just make sure you do your quarterly return to let them know how much of your duty, how much of your 200,000 balance you've used up. Now, the only problem I would just raise is if you are a common importer and maybe you've got high value goods that have a lot of duty applied, you may use up your 200,000 euro balance, and once you've used it up, then it's used up. So I would always look at other options first before I go to that. That's probably like a last resort, the de minimis, unless you're dealing at a smaller level and you're never going to go over your 200k balance. And then I suppose the fifth way to avoid duty would be maybe special customs reliefs like inward processing, return goods relief. I think we talked about temporary import, temporary export. So for those types of reliefs, it's always probably good to collaborate with the likes of ourselves or a customs agent just to make sure your understanding is correct and you've obtained the appropriate approvals, etc. So that's essentially that question. Just going on to the chat here. See if there's any other questions, Paul.
Yeah, there was one there, Conal. It came from a business, I believe they're based in Dundalk, and they have a question how to deal with origin of goods. For example, if we are importing goods from Turkey or China and did some modification in Ireland and then trade into the UK, then in that particular case, what would the origin of goods be and how can we deal with it? I'm not sure if that's got to do with the amount of modification to the goods from the...
That's a very tricky area, and it's exactly as you say, Paul. It comes down to the amount of modification,
level of information,
and it's the concept of has substantial transformation happened. So I would advise that that company to read up on substantial transformation and determine. And it's nearly a case-by-case basis. They need to have justified whether substantial transformation has happened, and it's not a black or white thing, because even if you read into the theory around it, it talks about it gives examples of what substantial transformation is and what it isn't. So, for example, if you buy something in from China and maybe you rebox it or you add a small element to it, then that's not substantial transformation. But maybe if you take a part in and you manufacture a brand new product, for example, that is substantial transformation. So I would advise them to talk to someone about that and try and understand the process there.
And Conor, who do you talk to for that? Who's the arbitrary decision maker on that decision? You make an objective yourself, I guess.
The likes of ourselves would help. Would help them, advise them on that. And then it was.
Sorry, Conal, to jump in, but in terms of for ourselves, because we also can't be the absolute, there is a lot of judgment involved in it, but we do definitely defer to the likes of Revenue, have a classification origin section, tarclass.ie, and we would they're really supportive and helpful. So if ever there's any query on an area like that, we definitely take all the information and say, we need your support in this example.
And generally what they will do is, if you go to them and you explain, you say, listen, here's what our product is, here's all the information, and this is what we think. We think that substantial transformation has occurred because of X, Y, and Z. And can you just confirm? That's normally a stronger position to go to them rather than just saying, please tell us, because they'll have less confidence in you then, I suppose, if you do that. You're better off going forearmed and I suppose looking like you know what you're doing before you contact them. That's a good question. Yeah.
It's a very good question, and I know it's a difficult one to answer, but hopefully we could put a link maybe into that, Claire, as well.
Yeah, definitely. I'll share the address. Absolutely.
Yeah, that'll be brilliant as well. Yeah. And just a question I had, based on your experience of dealing with Mantis and other similar businesses, have people changed their supply based on, what's the easiest path of less resistance? Let's put it that way.
It depends.
I would say, I'll just jump in there, Claire. I would
Yeah,
say
go for it.
they definitely have, because even a lot of Northern Ireland businesses now, maybe previously it would have been just as easy for them, maybe for transport reasons, to go via Dublin. Now they're nearly all going just via Belfast, because the risk of getting held up via the Dublin route. And I saw some stats somewhere there that showed that the ports in Northern Ireland had been a lot busier in comparison to Dublin, for example. So I would say that there definitely has been some change and good movement there in routes.
So that's the whole, I suppose, as you said earlier, Claire, it's mapping out your supply chain.
Absolutely.
And looking at the options there and making a decision based on what's easiest and low cost, I suppose, you know.
Yeah.
And
then the other thing to bear in mind, Paul, is low cost doesn't always mean it's going to work for you. Like I've said, if you've got goods that are coming, you know, GBNI and ending up in ROI, you know, that you've got the transit option, or you customs clear them in the north, but that might not be a viable solution for a business. So they may have to look at Dublin to come directly into ROI if it's an ROI business. There's just a lot of things to consider, and the mapping out is key at the beginning. Absolutely.
Okay, another question came in there. How to deal with the sample or missing product in order to custom on an order custom declaration? Do we need to pay custom duties with them or for them?
We probably need more information in relation to that. I mean, potentially, yes, I suppose, depending on the product. If there's product moving between GB and either Northern Ireland or Republic of Ireland or vice versa, then potentially yes, I suppose, is the answer to that. Probably just need a bit more information though to be able to answer that better.
Okay, very good. And just a question for Anne, really, Anne of Mantis there, just in terms of, have your experience so far in terms of additional costs for your business looking forward? Has it had a significant impact? The new, in terms of product development, would you be saying we need to allocate X amount of additional cost to this particular product development because
costs in general have increased? Like we have another company here, and the cost of steel, although it hasn't doubled, it's like 40% higher than it was this time last year. We can only hold those prices when we're quoting on a job for about 2 weeks for a customer to make up their mind. So we have the rising cost of materials in general. Labor costs are increasing as well. It's hard to get labor. But in terms of sourcing products, we are still purchasing goods from the UK. However, we are investigating other suppliers because we anticipate things to get more difficult bringing goods across from the 1st of January. And even the availability and supply of those goods, we anticipate there to be shortages in the construction industry. So we're just keeping an open ear in relation to everything. The costs have not increased that much at the minute, but we do expect the availability to decline, costs to rise. And we are looking at other suppliers in the Republic of Ireland and EU. We have to be careful as well because there's a lot of safety. We have to ensure our product is very safe. So we can't just buy a cheaper product. The safety is the most important thing first and foremost. So if we have to buy a more expensive product to ensure that our finished good is of the sufficient standard that it needs to be, that's what will happen. But then, you know, the ball rolls and the customer's going to have to pay for it somewhere along the line.
And the other thing, Claire, maybe, or Conal, you could answer is just in terms of preparedness. I mean, anecdotally, we heard that a lot of Irish businesses and Northern Ireland businesses were kind of semi-prepared, better prepared maybe than most because they knew it was going to be coming along in January, and that GB businesses based maybe were not as in tune with it. Have you engaged with many GB businesses, and where do you feel they are in terms of their willingness to supply NI or ROI based on the new environment? Are they getting up to speed really in terms of what their requirements are?
I know, and maybe in a minute, Claire, you can come in and some of us you might have a bit more detail, but I know that a lot of our, I suppose the checks came in, were introduced here on the island of Ireland first, and the checks at the border certainly still haven't actually happened from a GB perspective. And Claire alluded to it earlier in her slide about how they're going to be coming in now in January 2022 and during 2022. We know that some of our actual customers, our Irish customers, have had to organise, almost help their UK customers get set up for Brexit and for customs, and they've nearly put us in contact with some of their UK customers who really, I suppose, weren't as far down the line as some of the Irish ones were, Paul. So certainly we have found that the more local businesses here, I suppose, because we've had to, and the UK market is so important to us, they've been more au fait with what's happening, whereas maybe the actual UK companies themselves, Ireland's probably a smaller market, so maybe it's not as big an impact for them. Claire, you anything else to add on that?
Yeah, I'd say all that's correct and right. And a lot of the UK interactions we've had have been through our customers. They're customers of our customers, essentially. I know even Anne's counterparts in the UK, Mantis UK, we're working with now, Anne, and it's just, I think, yeah, Ireland being small, maybe there hasn't been the awareness of what is coming down the line, what's needed. And I think they're definitely though starting to take notice. I feel we're getting contacted more from UK businesses as 2021 closes out. So they're definitely probably slightly behind in terms of the preparation, but by virtue of the fact that they haven't had all the requirements in place. Yeah.
But the big message for them now though is that January 22 is coming, and they need to get themselves themselves in gear. So exactly. They still have time to contact someone and get organised and plan and collaborate with an agent or whoever they choose to work with.
Yeah,
and I think that was a key message Claire you made there, was like there's never you get yourself prepared ASAP. Engage with the likes of yourselves there just to get the ball rolling. And I think the other point you made was once you've done it once, you got through the understanding of it and getting that, you learn so much from that dry run, if you like. Or
I think the thing is, we always say that to any new client, they kind of majority express some form of, oh my goodness, there's a lot involved. And we always say to them, the first goods movement is always the most tricky. It's new to everyone in that particular business, but once you've got through that, honestly, it becomes smoother and smoother each time. It's refined, and it's amazing the amount of knowledge you have ahead of your next one. So yeah.
Brilliant. I'm just looking down through it to see if there's any questions there. So just that the slides and the recording will be shared with everybody in the call today, and we'll also share it among our members as well, so that anybody who wasn't able to join today will be able to access the contact details for Easy Customs. Was there anything else, Conal or Claire or Anne, that you'd like to add just before we wrap up? I know we're conscious of the time.
No, nothing from our end. So thanks very much.
Thanks for having us, Paul and Anna.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anne.
Yeah, no problem at all. Look, we'd like to thank Conal, Claire and Anne for supporting the webinar, and Anna in the background as well there for coordinating it all. Thanks very much, Anna, from a chamber perspective. And look, it's brilliant to have a company like Easy Customs, and Tony First is on the call as well. And it's great, Tony, you're working with Letterkenny Chamber and the two chambers working together. Brilliant to try and help people move goods from the Northwest region, which is really brilliant. And Tony mentioned also about having the certificates of origin there, which is a service that they provide within the Letterkenny Chamber. So please contact them where necessary as well. Look, the key bit is the guys are only a phone call away. If you have, it is a murky area, it's a tricky area to meander your way through the challenges that are there. But look, it's only when you dip into it. And I suppose the other point would be, don't be afraid to try it. There are challenges there. It is worth the reward because not maybe everybody's doing it. So maybe there's a commercial opportunity here for businesses to take this leap, to go through it now, because there might be some rewards at the end of it, because not everybody's doing it. That might be another way of looking at it. And that you guys are there. And as I say, the contact details, they're only a phone call away. So look, thank you so much again for your time, and really appreciate it. And unless there's any further questions, I think we'll close up.
Thank you, Paul.
No, thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye now. Bye.